I had this grand plan to go to the water, and I was gonna talk to you guys there, but the wind was absolutely ridiculous. So please remember at some point today to get up, to stretch a little bit, drink your water, take your meds. That applies to you. Eat something if you can, and remember that you are loved, you matter, and try to stay flexible. Sometimes life doesn't give you exactly what you want. Sometimes the wind is too strong for you to record a video out by the water. Sometimes it's more serious. But either way, do what you need to do to survive the day. All right, so since it's such a windy day, I thought I'd answer some questions here in the car. How did you and your wife meet? We met at Starbucks. We did not care for each other at the time. We were not best friends. We were not in love. We did not care for each other. It was a very much, what do they call that? A slow burn? Like, it took time. We went from not caring for each other to getting used to each other, to being people who worked in the same company, to being friends, then dating, and now we've been married for 18 years. And honestly, what attracted me to her was she wanted to know me. She saw me. She made space for me. When she found out that I didn't like ice in my water, I never would ask for it because it just felt so weird and picky. She would tell the waiter that I didn't want ice in my water. Like, we were out with friends and we were hanging out. And that was like when I first, I want to be friends with this girl. Yeah, it was very much, it was not like this, I pursued her just to date her. We were friends first. And from that friendship and her seeing me and making space for me to be who I was before a diagnosis, neither of us knew I had a diagnosis at the time. And she just accepted me. I mean, yeah, she thought it was weird, and yeah, she thought it was different, but for some reason, I don't know. Anyway, and that's what made me fall in love with her. Not her looks or anything like that. It was, not that I don't think she's pretty or anything, but it was who she was. It was her spirit. It was her vibe that attracted me. And that she made space for who I was and didn't make me feel like I was less for being different. Anyway, do you have any challenges navigating parenthood, especially as a first-time parent? Yes. The whole thing was a hurricane. It was so stressful. And I love my children so much. And I love being their dad. And that love for them caused me to research and find any and all resources, a lot of reading books to try to be the best dad I could for them. And the biggest thing was love them. I know that sounds simple and cheesy, but seriously, love them and accept them. Like, we didn't do the cry it out thing. They slept in our bed until, I felt like they understood what it meant to go to bed. And then I would stay with them when they first fell asleep. It was for all our children. And if ever they couldn't sleep and needed to come lay in our bed, they knew they could come to us. And it was frustrating, but I also I knew that I was thinking down the road, 20 years from now, I wanted to know that I had loved my children, made space for them. We didn't have a lot of money. We still don't have a lot of money. So I couldn't buy them all the cool things or take them on cool trips. They've never been to Disneyland. But I wanted them to know that I loved them and that they could be who they were around us. And I believe that's the most important thing we can do as parents. It's not about training them. It's not about making it easy to be their parent. It is about loving them and encouraging them to grow as people and recognizing and respecting them as people. Anyway, that's oversimplification, but I would have to write a book to explain all of that. As your children are older, do they understand my autism diagnosis? Yes. When I got my diagnosis at age 39, we talked with them, explained to them what that meant. As I've been learning about myself, I've been sharing that with them and, trying to model how I'm navigating all of this. And I've shared my depression. I've just shared about my anxiety, but not just telling them how hard it is for me, but also here's what I'm doing to work on it. I want to show them that I have these obstacles and I have these difficulties, but also here is also how I am persisting in spite of them. How does my family feel about me being a content creator? They're pretty supportive. They, for the most part, prefer not to be in my videos, which is why you will rarely ever see them. But, I've been in a couple. She doesn't mind as much. The kids are in a state where they don't want to be on anything. It's probably not cool to be on your dad's YouTube channel or TikToks at this point in their lives. They're all teenagers pretty much at this point. But yeah, they're really supportive. Like if I say, hey, I need to record a video, like if I'm at home, they'll quiet down and let me record that video if they have like a TV or something in the background. But yeah, they've been really supportive. Take through my career journey, and I finally found work that was a good fit for you considering your unique needs. Ooh, oh gosh, okay. Well, so initially my plan was to become a firefighter and then open a coffee shop. So when we moved to Virginia, we got married, and I tried to join the fire department. I tried 3 times, and I got all the way to the final stage of testing each time, and I never got picked. And so my backup plan was to go in the military. Well, that fell through. Like I tested all that stuff, went to a base to go through all the things, and I got to the doctor, and the doctor's like, yeah, you have asthma. I can't clear you for service. And that was all my plans. Up in smoke. So I ended up working for an industrial textile company for 4 years. That was horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. It was not a good fit for me. I left, went back to Starbucks, which was not a good fit for someone with a family. The hours were ridiculous. And then at that point, I was already going back to school, and I decided I was going to go into education. And I knew I needed a job where I was off on weekends, or at least one day during the weekend. So a friend of mine helped me get a job at a bank. And so I worked at a bank for a while I was finishing up my degree in education. And then I started working at a small school. Oh, okay. So, gosh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. How did I find it? So when I was in the process of going back to school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no plan. And I did a lot of reflecting and writing and thinking about what is my purpose? What do I want to be doing? And I remembered that I thought about what was the thing I liked best. In fact, a friend asked me this question. Out of all the jobs you've had, in every job, what was something you were doing where you felt right, where you enjoyed it? And that was anytime I was training somebody, teaching somebody. For a little while, I was teaching health and safety classes, and I really enjoyed that. So I realized that that's what I love. I love teaching. So that's ultimately led to me pursuing a degree in education. Then I started reaching out to schools, private schools, public schools, didn't matter. And finally, a private school agreed to meet with me, head of school agreed to meet with me and talk with me. And so talked with them. They encouraged me to come on as a substitute teacher, see how I liked that. And so I finally got my first chance to substitute teach. And at the end of the day, after the kids went home, I cried because I felt, it all felt right. Like I knew what to do. I knew how to I felt comfortable interacting with the students of all ages. My mind, the way my brain works, I love teaching. And so that was it for me. So, I went full time, to rep my degree as quickly as possible. I loved it. I loved being in school. I love learning. I would pursue my PhD if I had the time. Seriously. I love studying and learning. I love it. Anyway, and so that was the first thing. I didn't know I had unique needs at the time. I just knew that I fit. I knew that I could do the job. Sorry, there's a bug in the car. All right, anyway. And then as my health started, and then I started teaching, my health issues started increasing to the point where I ended up in the hospital, then back in the hospital, then back in the hospital, then getting tests done. And long story short, there's already a video about my diagnosis story, so go look for that to see that. Anyway, so then it got to the point where I couldn't teach anymore. And that's when I met with our head of school and I said, hey, I can't do it anymore. I'm so sorry. I don't want to quit necessarily, but I can't teach. And they asked, well, what else can you do? And that's when I shared my hobbies of, blog work, content creation, writing, and things like that. And so that's why I ended up doing what I'm doing now, which is marketing, content creation, things like that. So the short answer for all of this is this thing my parents always told me: pursue your interests and talents, even if you don't think it's going to make any money. Right? Often everybody's always like, oh, you can make money doing that. Oh, you can make money doing that. No, just do it for the joy of it. Because especially if you have a chronic illness, mental health disorders, or any form of neurodivergence, enjoying the process of what you're doing goes such a long way to finding work that you enjoy and love and can stay in. It's not the end results we need to be thinking about. It's, do you enjoy the process? Like with this YouTube channel, I enjoy the process of recording and editing and posting videos. Yes, it's nice to see your comments. I like seeing the channel grow, and I hope it continues to. But I also just enjoy making videos. It's fun for me. I enjoy the process. So I challenge you to find things you enjoy the process in, and don't worry if you, obviously you have to work, but even if you're working a job you hate, while you're figuring out what you love, don't always think, how can I make money doing this? Just focus on, do I enjoy doing this? This is fun for me. Can I get into it a little bit? And then you never know where it might take you. All right, my top 3 or 5 favorite teas. Top 3, English breakfast, green jasmine tea, Earl Grey. Earl Grey is kind of a distant second. It's really English breakfast and jasmine and green tea. Favorite brands, PG Tips for black tea. Green tea, I don't know where it comes. I don't know the name of it. A friend of mine got it from a Chinese market in Richmond. The tin just has, there's no English characters on it. So I don't know the brand. I don't know what it's called, but it's the best green tea I've ever had. I need to ask her again where that store is so I can go there and get some more of it. But those are my 3 favorite teas. Amen. Amen. Never meant to start a war. I just wanted you to let me in. Bring me the smoke and I'll build you a fire. Now I got here, but I think I'm starting to understand. Started to cry, but then remembered I. All right, if you're able to talk about relationships as an autistic person. For example, is your wife neurodivergent or neurotypical, and what helps your relationship work from an autistic standpoint? I asked because I'm autistic and my boyfriend is neurodivergent with OCD. Way to figure out what works best for us. Okay, 1, awesome username, Maiden Warrior Crone. That's amazing. 2, thank you for telling me why. As an autistic person, I'm always, well, actually, I don't know if it's because I'm autistic, but I'm always wondering what the question is behind the questioning. Because I've learned the hard way that hardly anybody ever is just asking you one question. Even I do that. Anyway, whatever. Once we got our my diagnoses, everything made sense, and it helped our marriage so much. Now, just to be clear, my diagnosis was not an excuse for me to be a nightmare around the house or for me to be difficult. It was the reason, and it showed me what I needed to work on to be a better husband, if that makes sense. And I learned how to communicate. So if there were days where I was just super dysregulated and I had a hard time interacting, I call it being a hedgehog. I would let her know that I'm a hedgehog right now. And that was my way of saying, I'm on edge, I'm easily irritable, it's got nothing to do with you or anyone else, I just need a moment to get myself sorted. And so being able to communicate where I'm at and what was going on with me, oh, so big for our marriage, so big. So number 1 is understanding. We both learned to understand each other and make space for where we were. And then the second thing was communication. Communication. And what inspired me to start reading stories on YouTube? Students. I loved, and my children, I loved telling stories to my children, reading stories to them. I loved reading stories to my students. And my first attempts at a YouTube channel really failed because I was trying to be like other people on YouTube. But then I started thinking, what do I have to offer? What do I like to do? And one of them is telling stories. It was one of my favorite things about being in a classroom, was reading to my students, reading the history textbooks, reading anything. Yeah, that was kind of the inspiration for that. I've always loved stories. How do you deal with anxiety related to health issues? Do you have a meditation practice? Yes. So I use the company Downward Dog has a meditation app. I use that every night to meditate. I'm also going through the Self-Compassion Workbook by Kristen Neff. And I also recently read a book called Goblin Mode. And that really helped me embrace my imperfections and not being enough. To be honest with you, I'm still on this journey because as a man, all the books I've read about manliness and masculinity and the YouTube videos I watched as a young adult into adulthood was all about strength, crushing your goals, accomplishment, discipline, pushing through, light the candle at both ends, no excuses, all that fun stuff. And that's great, but as a man with a chronic illness, it didn't help because pushing myself pushes me into the hospital. So I had to learn that I have limits and I had to work within those limitations. And I couldn't have that, what was that line in The Dark Knight where Alfred's like, know your limits, Master Wayne, and Batman's like, Batman has no limits, and that's like the macho thing. And I can't do that. My strength looks different. Now, would I argue that I'm still a strong person? Yes, I'm incredibly strong. My will is incredibly strong, but it's not the strength of a charging elephant or a charging rhinoceros. It is the strength of a 200-year-old tree that weathers storms and remains. That is my strength, is that I remain. No matter how much I get broken, no matter how many times lightning strikes me, I remain. That is the strength that I have. It's that steady strength of a mountain that doesn't move. Wow, that sounded really cheesy. Let me know, did that sound cheesy or is that inspiring? I can't tell. Anyway, what are my favorite songs and why? So the Electro Suite by Hans Zimmer and Pharrell Williams from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, so good. I think it's because the music is satisfying, the depth of the tones, the way, the composition of it, love it. I love a lot of Hans Zimmer's work. I really like classical music because there's so many instruments. So the ADHD part of my brain can fixate on all the variety of sounds that's happening. And the autistic side of my brain likes the comfort of the grounding melody within it. There's probably tracks from every genre that I could probably appreciate. So music really depends on the mood that I'm in. Whether I listen to country or rap or pop music or classical music or dubstep, it depends on the mood that I'm in and the vibe I'm trying to create for myself. Sometimes I use music as a trigger, if that makes sense, for focusing. Like my playlists are all based on chemicals. My playlists are called dopamine, Adderall, serotonin, cortisol, and such. Were there any signs you or others noticed that led you to believe that you were autistic? Yes. So my wife was working as a classroom aide and she was working with autistic students, and she started noticing parallels between the behavior of that student and myself. And that's actually what led to me ultimately getting the diagnosis. My wife recognizing that, and she came home one day and said, babe, I think you might be autistic. I think this might be worth looking into. And I trusted her, of course. So I started looking into it and did the online quizzes, and I kept coming back strong, like, yeah, you're probably autistic. And so then I talked with my primary care, talked to my therapist, ultimately got recommendation for testing, did the testing, and they came back with, yes, you are definitely autistic. So yeah, there were signs. Those signs were inflexibility. I would get frustrated if somebody was where they shouldn't be. If people were over at my house and I didn't know that they were coming over, that would stress me out. Social interactions, interacting with people, always super stressful for me. I needed certain things to be the same. Had sensory issues or things I just didn't like the feel of and such. Top 3 favorite books, movies, TV shows. All right, books. Wind in the Willows. I read it at least once a year. The Tao of Pooh at the moment, I would definitely put there in the top 3. And probably either the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi or Code of the Samurai translated by Thomas Cleary. So it's kind of a tie for that third one in the books. Kind of cheated there. Movies: Deadpool, Deadpool 2, Equilibrium, and I'm going to cheat again, and Devil Wears Prada. But because Deadpool 1 and 2, I'm going to count as one movie. I probably shouldn't do that, but whatever. I don't care what the rules are. Because I've always loved Deadpool in the comics. I don't have them all memorized, so don't try to test me. Do you remember what happened to issue number? I'm not that kind of fan. But I really do like Deadpool, the comic book character. I loved Ryan Reynolds' portrayal of him in the movies. Definitely not kids' movies, but anyway. Love Equilibrium because Christian Bale did all of his own stunts, and I just love that film, and I love Devil Wears Prada. So those are my top 3 favorite movies. TV shows, I don't have favorite TV shows. TV shows are hit and miss. I really do like My Hero Academia, which is an anime. Really big fan of that. I like Hunter x Hunter. That's another anime. I used to really, no, I'm not even going to mention that. Yeah, that's as far as I'm going to go with the TV shows. Why am I such a good dancer? I never thought of myself as a good dancer. Thank you for saying that. You're very sweet. I took ballet for a few years, and I briefly studied tribal dancing, and I took a little bit of ballroom dancing, and I just like moving my body to music. All right, I think we're going to stop there, and I guess we're going to do a part 3.